This is Famous and Gravy, biographies from a different point of view. To participate in our opening quiz, email us at hello@famousandgravy.com. Now, here's the quiz to reveal today's dead celebrity.
This person died 2025, age 65. His younger brother Wesley drowned in a swimming pool in 1977, an event that haunted him for years.
Wesley, that's such a British name. It's a British guy.
I got nothing.
Throughout his career, he often left an impression of unpredictability.
I'm thinking it's the Beach Boys guy.
George Peppard.
Not George Peppard.
On the screen, he was both charismatic and curiosity-piquing, an actor who didn't let his characters give emotional clues away easily. Off the screen, he had his share of disagreements, especially early in his career when he earned a reputation for surliness and self-involvement.
I was going to say Gene Hackman, but he was older than 65.
Not Gene Hackman.
It feels like I can't remember a single actor who's ever been born.
He applied to the Juilliard School in New York at 17 and became one of the youngest students ever admitted to the acting program there.
I'm only now thinking of Eric Andre, who's very much alive, but who I recently learned is like a Juilliard
fella.
prodigy. Oh my God, I can see he. Oh my God, killing me.
David, who was in the movie with Tom Cruise?
He was cast as a rocker a handful of times early in his career when he seemed destined for blockbuster success.
Wait, 2025, is that Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Don't tell me. I know his name. I can picture his face.
He was the guy who played the Doors guy, right?
He played Iceman in Top Gun.
Val Kilmer.
Oh, Val Kilmer.
Is this Val Kilmer?
Val Kilmer! It's Val Kilmer! It's Val Kilmer.
Today's dead celebrity is Val Kilmer.
I was a dumb actor, but I did complain quite a bit when I was younger. I didn't appreciate the business that afforded me the lifestyle that I very quickly enjoyed. Very quickly. I starred in my first movie. I was the lead in the first play I did professionally. And now that I don't have that privilege, I wish that I loved more. I want to be a better person.
Welcome to Famous and Gravy. I'm Michael Osborne.
And I'm Isaac Kestenbaum.
And on this show, we choose a famous figure who died in the 21st century and we take a totally different approach to their biography. What didn't we know? What could we not see clearly? And what does a celebrity's life story show us about ourselves? Today, Val Kilmer died 2025, age 65. All right, I am thrilled to have my friend Isaac Kestenbaum back on the show. Isaac is the director of the SALT Institute of Documentary Studies in Portland, Maine. He was previously on the Stan Lee episode, and now he's here today to talk about Val Kilmer. I gotta ask, so you're the director of the SALT Institute. I was thinking about this morning. Do you get to hear about a lot of good stories by virtue of your role? Like, are you like sort of immersed in storytelling?
Yes, a lot. And, especially from alum who will like reach out and tell me what they are up to. Sometimes I feel a little bit like a parent, like after their kids leave, and I'm like, I don't hear from you, tell me more. Like, so I have to
you still love me?
Yeah, like, what's going on? You call anytime. I'd love to hear what you're up to. But yeah, I think alum are out there doing amazing work.
Yeah.
And just being surrounded by ideas and like kicking around like story ideas is my favorite thing. Like I love to sit in on all the pitches that the students do, like when they're
Yeah.
You got a little bit of rays of God coming in from the side of your...
But that's because divine intervention in this episode. Yeah, this is famous and
I think you should save that, though, for the
I'm in Santa
staircase.
Fe, and the spirit of Val Kilmer is all around us. He did claim New Mexico as a home. Yeah. I want to just make one more comment on the storytelling thing. I've really been, I think that there is this big question with AI and new technology of like educational philosophy, and I've really been thinking like, what do I want my kids to know? And one thing I've really come to is that I want them to be storytellers, even if I don't know what storytelling medium they're going to be using. Podcasting didn't exist, whatever, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Movies are, a fairly recent invention. Video games are evolving all the time. And I feel like storytelling is one of those like fundamental skills that we kind of emphasize in education, but it's something that I think, is a life skill, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, that will carry with you. And so it's really cool. I admire your job. I'm a little envious. But cool. That answers it. All right. I got one more question for you.
Sure. Yeah.
We got to talk top 5 Val Kilmer movies.
Yes.
I don't usually do this, but I asked you to prepare ahead of time.
Yes.
What are your top 5 movies? And not necessarily roles, because I think that is actually, in his case, an especially different question. But, maybe we go, I've got my 5, and maybe we go out of order, lead up to number 1.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
So what's your number 5?
I actually think that the documentary that was made about him, Val, that he kind of made about himself, I'm putting that number 5. I feel like that was really eye-opening. I watched it with my wife, and I think we both teared up a little bit at certain points in it. I found it surprisingly moving. So that's my number 5.
Part of it is he has all this footage that he shot on camcorders for his whole life. This is definitely going to come up in the conversation. My number 5 was The Saint. I love The Saint. I think that's such a great movie. Yeah, I think I know not everybody loves it. I'm so entertained by that movie. And I've always had a thing for Elizabeth Shue. So that helps. All right, what do you got for number 4?
Number 4, I'm going Thunderheart, which was the 90s movie he made with Sam Shepard. It's set on kind of fictional version.
Reservation in South Dakota.
And I just found it really engrossing. Like one of the joys of this episode is revisiting some of Val's work, and I hadn't seen this one. So I just kind of sat down to watch it. And I was like, I'll watch maybe like the first 30 minutes, and I was just totally drawn in. And
loved it. I didn't make my list. I love that we're coming at it from different places.
I bet our top
think this
3
sort
are
of speaks to it.
Yeah.
Maybe. I bet there'll be some overlap. I don't know. My number 1, I think, will surprise you. My number 4 was The Doors. I love it. I defend The Doors. I know it's problematic. I know it is like really taking liberties with the truth, but I love that movie. It's got, next to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, it's got some of my favorite psychedelic, experience, footage. Like them tripping in the desert is just the best to me. All right, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Heat.
Okay, that was my number 2. Yeah.
I think it's just like a solid movie, and he's so good in it and so memorable. And and I think that's maybe not his best performance of all the ones on my top 5, but I just like that's very rewatchable to me.
Heat is one of my favorite movies, full stop. So that's why I gave it number 2. All right, what do you got for number 2 then?
Number 2 is Top Gun.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't make my list. I didn't make my list. I'm sorry. I'm telling you, we're gonna have different. No, I mean, I've come to appreciate it, but it's so bubblegummy. That movie drives me crazy. I listen to the soundtrack, I can't get it out of my head. He is fabulous in it. Roles, yes, I might consider it, but no, that is not my number 2. My number 2, well, I already said was Heat. I didn't give you my number 3. My number 3 is Real Genius. I love the movie Real Genius. I watched it with my kids recently. I think it totally holds up. Chris Knight, it was always like just somebody I looked up to growing up.
Yeah.
All right. So what's your, I don't think we're going to have the same. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is Tombstone.
I thought it might be. Didn't make my list. I love the movie, and I think maybe my favorite role, my number 1 is True Romance.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's not a Val Kilmer movie. We don't even see his face playing Elvis, but True Romance will always be, I think, my number 1 movie of all time. It just brings together the greatest cast, and I frickin' love the script. I mean, I thought that was peak Tarantino, and I could watch it over and over again. The first time I watched it when I was, I think, 16 years old, I remember putting the cassette in the player, watching it, and then hitting stop, rewind, and I watched it again. And I'd never done that with any other movie. Like I didn't get enough. I got to go more. I got to do it all over again. All right.
Yeah, that'd be my number 6. True Romance, probably 6 or 7. Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm glad we went through that exercise though, because I feel like one of the things about the Val Kilmer IMDb is that you're like, oh yeah, over and over again, you know? All right, I think we've got it out of our system.
Only one in common was Heat? Is that right?
I think that's right. That's right.
Wow.
That speaks to the man's, diversity of catalog. He had an incredible run. All right, let's get to it. Category 1, grading the first line of their obituary.
Right.
Val Kilmer, a homegrown Hollywood actor who tasted leading man stardom as Jim Morrison and Batman, but whose protean gifts and elusive personality also made him a high-profile supporting player, died on Tuesday in Los Angeles. He was 65. Isaac, initial reactions.
I think a lot of this is really spot on and really nails what is so unique about him in a very short sentence. So I really like that they mentioned he tasted leading man stardom, but then really was known as a supporting player, like we were just talking about. And then I think elusive personality.
Perfect.
Yes.
So, and I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, me too. I have some quibbles. I don't know if you want me to share those now.
No, let's stick on what's good.
Okay.
I mean, because I had the same reaction. I have a very high score here, I think. I love homegrown Hollywood actor, even though he doesn't really... He has a conflicted relationship with LA. I mean, he spends a lot of his adult life in New Mexico, which is where I happen to be recording this. And, didn't seem to love. There was a Larry King interview where he asked, have you always loved Los Angeles or something like that? And he's like, I'm not sure I ever have. But he is so Southern California, just such a, golden boy, good looking Southern California dude. I think that Jim Morrison and Batman is a pretty nice contrast in terms of range of characters he played that are iconic, but that are very like a rocker and a superstar. That sort of says something. I like protean gifts a lot. Yeah. And I think elusive personality is so spot on. If I were to lead into, I don't know if it's a quibble exactly, but they have this whose protean gifts and elusive personality also... I thought that they were going to go a different direction with this last clause. They said they also made him a high-profile supporting player. I thought that they were going to say also made him, a prickly personality, or not personality, but also made him, hard to work with, and he wound up not doing as well his last, 20 years in terms of blockbuster and success, right? I thought that they were going to hint at the story of how he sort of fell off the map, somewhere in the early 2000s. And instead they say high-profile supporting player, which almost felt like I don't know if it's a cop-out exactly. It's just not where I would have taken the story, But the vocabulary is great, and I think is actually doing a lot of subtle work. So overall, I was really pleased. What were your quibbles?
I didn't love homegrown Hollywood as much, but now that I hear you say that, like, if you look at him, he was clearly, grown in that, like, that's where he came from, like that face and like
the Southern California soil.
But I wasn't sure. It didn't feel as defining, to be the first thing that you mentioned in the obit. And then
that's fair. Like
Jim Morrison and Batman are household names, so I think that's probably why they put those in. But I actually feel like when you say Val Kilmer to most people, they probably think of, well, maybe not actually, but I would say they might think of his like Iceman or Doc Holliday or some of his other roles. So I wish that they could have maybe fit those in. But talking it through with you, I may have to put my score up one from where I had it initially.
I asked my wife last night at dinner, who did not grow up watching movies the same way I did. I'm like, Val Kilmer. She's like, yeah, I know who he is. I'm like, what's the first movie you think of? And she was silent for like 45 seconds, then looks at me and goes, was he in Point Break? And I was like, no, he could have been, now that you mention it. And it turns out he had an option for it. He's got a lot of movies he was up for and either decided not to go for or didn't get. Elusive personality kind of hints at his, being somebody who gets labeled as a difficult actor. And I do think that is a very important part of the Val Kilmer story that I'm sure we'll get into. But I think this is actually an surprisingly hard, unusually hard obit to write. He is a much more complicated figure than you would think at first glance. And I think the obit leaves open the door. The first line of the obit leaves open the door for some of that complicated interpretation in a way that you always have to grade these things on a scale. Is it an easy first line to write or not? I think this was a hard one to write. I think they got a lot of things right. Maybe they missed the mark in a couple of places, but given the challenge of it, overall, I'm inclined to give it a high score. So I think I've got my number. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I'm going to stick with my original one. I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay. I was going to give it a 9. So I think 9 is maybe a little high. But 8 actually is probably a little bit more right. I guess the fact that the phrase elusive personality is actually doing so much work for me that
me too.
The fact that they got that in there is just like, okay, I'm going to forgive a lot of other things where I might quibble.
Yeah.
The real score probably should be an 8, but I'm going to give it a 9.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Category 2, 5 things I love about you. Here, Isaac and I will develop a list of 5 things that offer a different angle on who Val Kilmer was and how he lived. You want to kick us off?
All right, I'll start with my hot take. So my hot take is I love that he was difficult with directors. And I think that certainly from what I've read, like a lot of his behavior on set is not what was considered acceptable at the time, nor would we consider it acceptable now. But I do think that he was a true artist and that a lot of his sort of difficultness came from a place maybe misguided or not well communicated, where he was really trying to give the best performance that he could. And I feel like this is crystallized so well in this story where he's 13 years old and is hired to do a burger commercial.
Didn't you once audition for a TV commercial for a hamburger that you just decided wasn't for you?
Yes, yeah. And the agent called me in after and don't you want to do this? I said, yeah, I want to act, but those hamburgers are terrible. I was a junior method actor. I didn't even know what it meant. But since I didn't believe they tasted good, I couldn't sell them.
And he walked off the set and never got paid. This was his first set storm off at age 13. So I think he comes by it naturally, at that age. I mean, I guess 13, whatever. But it's not as if he is playing with house money and can afford to piss people off. He needs to potentially build his career here, but he's so principled that he will not do that even on a burger commercial. And
I totally agree, and I absolutely love that about him as well.
I think we can be afraid of conflict sometimes, and maybe he went too far in that one direction. But he said he claimed that it wasn't about his ego; he was just trying to make the characters better, and that's when he would clash with directors. And Iceman, apparently he had a vision of Iceman's father and had a whole fictional interaction with his father, and that's real dedication to that part. Yeah.
It is, and I'm inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think he does himself any favors in terms of explaining his process, but I do think he's actually got a process, and he is an artist in a way I didn't understand him to be an artist, and not, and with all the difficulty that can come with, but with a commitment to it that really is a through line throughout his life.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you my number 2. I'm going to go with. Here's another place where I had to do some learning. So he is a devout Christian Scientist. And I didn't know much about Christian Science before this episode. I did some deep diving. The thing that comes up a lot is there's a reputation of being, how do you put it? Sort of averse to traditional medical treatment, I guess. That they go to, Christian Scientists often go to prayer before they go to the doctor. And that may have even been part of his story, that he initially, when he got throat cancer, rejected medical treatment. But then his kids, who were not Christian Scientists, said, Dad, you've got to do radiation and chemotherapy. Where I went with this, Isaac, is I'm okay, I want one of the principles of Famous and Gravy to be, let's look for similarities and not differences. You know, what can I take and leave the rest behind? And I do love his spiritual journey. I think over and over in his book, he points to coincidences. And I think coincidences are the greatest sign of spiritual seeking. One of the great stories is he's in Africa and he's in a bat cave. And then he comes out of the bat cave. He's like, I should call my agent. And he's like, I've been trying to get a hold of you for weeks. You got Batman, right?
I was going to say that he has that story in this book about the day his dad dies. You know, he's claimed that he like rode his horse back faster than was actually possible. You know, like it was not the first time that he had like bent time. He's like, time isn't real anyway, so I was able to get like back, and I had this like he saw like a eagle attacking a snake or something, and
that's the sort of sign from
his dad had passed. Yeah, as a sign. And the fact that you are in New Mexico right now recording this is not a coincidence.
Dude, this is kind of my point. There's stuff that comes up in the Jim Morrison thing where he like repeats mistakes that a Jim Morrison producer was like got emotional about. Here's where I'm at with coincidence. I think that the more you look for it, the more you see it. I've actually started a note on my phone where I'm trying to catch coincidences as they come up. And you know, is that a sign from the universe? It's a story we tell ourselves. And that is a big deal with Val Kilmer, because this man is telling himself a story about who he is that sometimes conforms with reality and sometimes kind of bending it around a little bit. But I came away, persuaded that he, had a spiritual commitment that you actually really even see it at the end of his life when it seems like he's confronting death. And he even says, I don't believe in death. Do you know that Michael Pollan, have you been reading his book on consciousness?
No, it's on my list.
Yeah. So Allison and I started it, and this whole topic of consciousness has been coming up a lot, feels like lately. I just seem to be having a lot of conversations about it. And there is a sort of idea out there that consciousness is something ubiquitous in the universe, and our human minds are just antenna and receptors. But that, when we think about death, it's death of ego and self, but it's not death of spirit or something like that. And when Val Kilmer talks about not believing in death, I think that's kind of where he's coming from. And I don't know if I'm there with that, but I was like, wow, that is surrender. That is release. That is serenity. That is peace with yourself. And I think he actually has that on display in the documentary you were talking about, in Val. So, I know I'm making the spiritual sort of upward staircase case early on, but I learned a lot in looking for similarities and not differences. And so my thing number 2 was take what you want and leave the rest behind. And that's where I went with it.
I love that.
What do you got for number 3?
I'm going to go with his body.
Okay.
I mean,
and we should say we're both, heterosexual men, but
yes, although
Val Kilmer is a sensuous man. I'm sorry, a sensual man.
They asked him to, someone in an interview, I don't know if you came across this, asked him, like, how would you rank the homoeroticism in Top Gun on a scale of 1 to 10? Yeah. And his answer was 11. But
very fair.
I guess I don't just mean it in like the sort of 1992 Val Kilmer pinup, kind of way. I think that he was a really physical actor.
Yes.
And from his appearance, like he said that like they gave him the initial idea for Iceman's haircut, but he wanted to make it, quote, weirder.
Yeah.
He like improvised a lot of the volleyball stuff, like spinning the ball on his finger, which I think is like one of the iconic moments from that. So like just a very physically present actor. And a lot of his roles, like even in Heat, like I don't have a memorable line of his in Heat, but I can like picture that character.
They used some of the film of Val Kilmer firing forward, firing back, and then doing a reload. They used that at Fort Bragg. 95% of you will not be able to fire as well as this actor.
I actually think like as he aged, there's a certain body positivity that I want to see there.
Yes, I totally agree. He's very comfortable. He's a little heavier, but he's really like, carrying himself comfortably and well. Body positivity is a great word for it. Yeah.
I love maybe mine is his body parentheses positivity. All right.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, like he, I even remember like some kind of mean memes going around of him like looking overweight and being like, hey guys, remember when I was Batman? Which I think is kind of cruel. But,
that's the internet for you.
but I feel like, there's a line in his book where he's like, my body is taken on a different form, but I choose to accept it. And I also think like, in his later life, he really let people into kind of see him in a very vulnerable state. Like after he had throat cancer and he had a tracheotomy tube and
then couldn't really talk.
Couldn't even talk, And I think a lot of people maybe would retreat.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, buddy.
I don't sound at my best.
You sound better than last time.
Yeah.
For sure.
I am better than last time. It just sounds like I have a bag of marbles in my mouth.
Yeah.
A couple of scenes from the doc where like he throws up at a convention because he's like just exhausted, and they show that, and they also like there's a scene of him like on the on a balcony like shirtless, and he looks like. I mean, we're both dads, he looks like a guy. He looks like a totally normal human person who is his age, but it's like you don't always see those bodies that are experienced on film. So
I think that is really, I love that, especially because I love the journey of it. I love that it's sort of the journey of his body in a way, because there is obviously a, sex symbol, as you said, sort of pinup quality to him. And extremely attractive man who I think has a lot of sensuality. But I also think that it even relates to the loss of his voice, and hearing him talk about making peace with this thing that was, his core instrument as an actor. I'm not a huge Top Gun fan, but the cameo he has in the sequel is extremely moving. And, he's not able to talk in that scene, which I think, does sort of get to this idea of physicality and body positivity. I love that. That's a great one, Isaac. Okay. I'll give you my number 3. I'm just going to say Mark Twain obsession.
Yes,
and this is more of a to-do for me than it is a thing, because I'm not like a Twain scholar. He's on the list of people I know I'm going to develop an obsession with, right? I've read, and I love Huckleberry Finn. I love Tom Sawyer. Mark Twain quotes get thrown around a lot, and you just bump into them. And so I feel like I've, got fragments of his biography and personality. And I know at some point, probably pretty soon, I'm going to do a deep dive on Mark Twain, and I kind of can't wait for it. Where it's interesting with Val Kilmer is that's this one-man show, which was kind of the last real performance-oriented thing he did. It was mostly self-funded. It was not lucrative. It sounds really weird in that it was like Mark Twain doing stand-up comedy, kind of.
All you need is ignorance and confidence, and success is sure. Yes. Yeah, let's get started, shall we? We're going to have a little talk tonight about truth and illusion. Some people call that heaven and hell. I believe if you're lucky enough to get into heaven, you will spend all your time improving yourself. You will study and study and study and progress and progress and progress. And if that ain't hell, I don't know what is.
Twain apparently had a lot of critical things to say about Mary, what's her name, the founder of Christian Science?
Eddy.
Mary Eddy. I think is her name.
I think there's a middle name in there that they usually
There is a middle name
right?
usually, but you know who I'm talking about. And so, Val Kilmer, devout Christian Scientist and, fanboy of Mark Twain, has this performance where he's sort of like trying to reconcile his love for these two figures. It got me interested in Twain, and I also love that Val Kilmer discovered live comedy as this release when his career has sort of fallen apart, and it is sort of his final public performance. He does a couple other things, Iceman, and Top Gun 2 or whatever, but it is kind of the last creative act of his, at least in terms of an actor that we would recognize. So that's my thing, number 4.
I just love that he's like putting himself out there at that stage in his career, like taking a risk, taking a big swing for something that I don't know if I'm going to get into a Twain phase, but like I'm entering my dad phase where I love reading like big nonfiction books, and
Yeah.
something's going to come for me. It's not maybe not Twain, but I'll be like, guys, did you know about like
Yeah, I mean, I
Robert
think
Caro? Like,
right. All right, so what do you got for number 5?
my thing number 5 is that he was a big thinker.
Okay.
So like outside of his acting career, he had like all these other endeavors that he was really like, you talked about Twain, but he bought this like 6,000 acre ranch, and his initial vision was he wanted to turn it into like a commune where like creative people could gather.
Yeah,
and,
it's like an artist retreat.
Yeah. And it sounded even more like grand than that, like the best people coming together and just like thinking about ideas. Which is a lot like Salt actually, minus 6,000 acres. And then he has to sell his ranch, but then he makes this art space in LA called Hellmel, which is like a weird name. I guess it's sort of like a Tribeca, like it's 2 neighborhoods mashed together. But it's this like amazing hybrid, like creative space where it's like, his art, which like he's also a poet and a
not a great
artist.
one, but a poet. But
and I love like Chuck Klosterman has that bit where like he does that profile of him and he gets a poem. He's like, I showed it to people and no one could tell if it was good or not. Like,
it's very Jim Morrison like that way.
Yeah, I guess I just like that he has these like has these big concepts that maybe he's not always able to realize fully. Like he wanted to make a documentary about the nuclear crisis, which he never really finished. In one profile I read of him, they said that he like when he was filming Wonderland, he filled his made collages of photographs of the set, like in the place where he was staying, and then spilled blood on it. Which is like
and nobody knew what
project.
to make of this.
Yeah, no one knows why.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like he's got these kind of big ideas that he's wrestling with in a way that like he doesn't have to do these things. Like he's like. So yeah.
This is a little bit of a weird turn. The smartest man I ever interviewed was a Stanford professor named Richard White, who was an environmental historian, and he was a MacArthur genius and just incisive and brilliant. And one time we were talking about, sort of like, where would you like to live? And he's like, somewhere, a creative center. And it was the first time that somebody had clicked for me that creativity and genius and like intellectual genius are all part of a similar culture. And I think Val Kilmer is an advocate for that. When you say big thinker, I also, where my mind goes is creates creative spaces. And I think
maybe
that
creativity is what I'm thinking about.
But I think it's also enabling creativity beyond his own. It's not just about his own craft. I mean, that space on the Pecos River, which is 30 miles from here, I've been up and down the Pecos River. It is gorgeous over there. And I can totally see why he would think this is a place where that'll foster good ideas. He was also working behind the scenes with the state of New Mexico to try and create tax incentives to bring, more Hollywood opportunities here.
Oh, wow.
It is it's hard to attribute, but like, I'm not sure we would have Breaking Bad if Val Kilmer hadn't been working behind the scenes.
That's amazing.
You can draw those lines. But I think even more, it really reminds me in some ways of David Lynch too, that this creativity is not just about the one form. So I think, and I would say the one other piece of that I really love, Isaac, is he never went to college, really. He went to Juilliard, right?
And he wrote like a play at Juilliard that went on to go to the public theater. So totally, yeah.
Dude, all right. I think we've got a great 5 things here. Let's recap. So number 1, you said you love that he's a difficult actor. I absolutely love that. Yeah. Number 2, I said take what you want and leave the rest behind. I love his spiritual journey. Number 3, you said body positivity?
Body positivity.
Body positivity. Number 4, Mark Twain obsession. And number 5, big thinker and creative spaces.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. And fostering them. Awesome list. Okay. Let's take a break. Category 3, One Love. In this category, we'll each choose one word or phrase that characterizes Val Kilmer's loving relationships. Before we get to it, we will review the family life data. So, one marriage to, I actually don't know if you say Joan or Joanne Wally. She was his co-star in Willow. Although he had a vision of meeting her before. Which is another one of those coincidences, right? They were 28, or he was 28 when they got married, 36 when they divorced, 2 kids, Mercedes and Jack, and it was. It sounds like they got to a more amicable place. Val Kilmer in his memoir talks about moving from California to New Mexico, where that ended up having a lot of financial consequences because of how back income is calculated. So he's not any good with money, that's for sure, but that's a different category. Anyway, so they divorce. He, other relevant info, he lost his brother Wesley at a young age, and Wesley sounds like Wesley was a teenager, I think, 7th grade or something. But it sounds like a sort of, early trauma event that stays with him for the rest of his life. And then I think you have to call out some of the high-profile girlfriends. I had no idea Val Kilmer was dating Cher, who was 10 years older than him when he is, just riding the rocket ship of fame, and stayed close with Cher. Also dated Cindy Crawford, had a love affair with her, Daryl Hannah, and Angelina Jolie, among others. He's so funny about how he describes those relationships.
It says here you dated Cher. Now, that didn't happen, did it? That didn't. Did it really?
I thought about drawing attention to his journey as a father because... his son voices has a voice similar to his and does the voiceover for the documentary, and it's kind of great. It looks like they both have interest in acting, and so I liked his kids, and it did sound like he was a really dedicated father.
Of the three of you, who is most likely to be late?
I'm gonna say Mercedes again.
Of the three of you, who is the biggest social butterfly?
Mercedes. Yeah.
Maybe right now it's me.
Describe his dad in 3 words or less.
3 words or less? Okay. Spontaneous, crazy, and loving.
Yeah. I'm gonna say genius.
Genius?
This is you answering?
But I ended up saying, girl, we couldn't get much higher. And that is a riff on The Doors, where there's this famous scene in The Doors where they're singing Light My Fire, and they're going on TV, and the censors are like, could you say, girl, we couldn't get much better? And Jim Morrison and Val Kilmer playing him does this sort of defiant,
girl, we couldn't get much higher. Yeah.
The reason I went with that phrase is that I do think he comes into romantic relationships as a romantic, and with very high expectations, and it just never quite clicks for him. I feel like he hits a ceiling, he hits a cap with where he's able to take a relationship and where he's able to be a boyfriend. I mean, all of his relationships with some of these high profile women are like he's just waxing so poetic about them, and then in the memoir, it's sort of like, yeah, but we ended up going our separate ways. Like, he doesn't give a very satisfying answer for why the relationships don't work. And my hunch is that, okay, he's probably a complicated boyfriend.
Yeah, he's like, I was a fool. Or like, I let it, it's like, what does that mean there, Val?
Val, can you elaborate a little bit more? Like, how exactly did you screw it up with Daryl Hannah or with Angelina Jolie or Cindy Crawford, for Christ's sakes? I mean, because he does sound like he, falls deeply in love with these women. And he probably did, but like, why they don't work, he hits a ceiling. Girl, we couldn't get much higher. So that was my phrase. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I love to see the relationship between him and his adult children in the doc. Obviously, we're seeing what he wants us to see, and he has editorial control over that. But like, just seeing him and his son like goof around as like Batman and Robin, I thought was really funny. Like in that they like dress up as Batman and Robin like randomly and like run around New Mexico. My phrase is tragic backstory. You mentioned it when you were doing the data, and I think that when his brother died, he was just about to start Juilliard, Val was, and his younger brother dies, has an epileptic fit, and drowns
in the swimming pool, right?
Or a hot tub, and I just feel like that happened right as he's about to start his career, and it seemed like he and Wesley had like a creative relationship together where Wesley was like making movies with him and like really seemed
home
to
movies,
be
that kind of thing.
A big figure, if not an influence on him. And I just kind of feel like, I kind of think Val never really got over that. And you talk about like people trying to fill holes on this show sometimes. And I feel like there's something tragic that is never fully healed. And, in the memoir, he says that he's in a cabin with Daryl Hannah, and she says something like, if we have kids, like, and we have a boy, let's name him Wesley. And Val says that, like, that opened, and he says it healed in the memoir, which I don't really believe, but he says, touched, opened, and healed my deepest wound, my deepest wish, and my deepest loss. So I just feel like somewhere at the core of him, there is something tragic, and that's
I think that's really astute. I was thinking a lot about, like, should we consider Val Kilmer a child actor? Not quite, right? But he is one of the youngest people ever to be accepted at Juilliard, right? And he does get a leading man role right out of the gate. And there's not a whole lot of space in his early life for sort of, not that you can ever in Hollywood or in the entertainment industry have sort of normal maturation, but I do feel like there was a way in which he was, plucked out of a talent pool and all over movie posters in a way that, child actors struggle so much, is that there's arrested development. They don't get to grow. They don't have, there's too much public scrutiny and too much sort of outsized expectations for themselves at a young age. Does that relate to the core trauma of Wesley? I mean, I sort of think, part of it was, did he have space to grieve and process, And I do think you're absolutely right that there is this unfillable God-sized hole, at the center of him that at times does feel like a relationship begins to meet the mark, a significant other, but ultimately he finds that lacking. And, that's a little bit of, I guess, armchair psychology.
Yeah, totally.
But there's some validity to it. I mean, that kind of tracks, right? The fact that he actually has a complete, interesting life is, to me, sort of amazing. I was thinking about this in terms of stereotypes. There is a way in which Val Kilmer's story, if not examined that closely, follows a Hollywood stereotypical path. Gorgeous man gets thrown into the limelight, big lights, bright stars, and, gets to a place in his career where he's not in demand and has a tragic fall from grace. And I think that really misses the artistic through line, and it really misses, some of his deeper needs that I think are coming up here.
Totally.
Let's move on. Category 4, net worth. In this category, we will guess the net worth. The results are sourced from the website celebritynetworth.com. Isaac and I will write down our numbers ahead of time before we reveal, and finally we will place Val Kilmer on the famous and gravy net worth leaderboard. Okay, I think we need to talk about this for a second just before we get into it, only because there is a moment where he is in his incredibly bankable star. Anybody who gets cast as Batman is in rare air category. And he is on a hot streak from, really right out of the gate up until around Heat. I think that there's some cult classics after that. I think Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and, there's a couple other, big-ish roles, but he does get labeled as difficult. He does have an expensive divorce. He is forced to sell his ranch right around the time of the subprime mortgage meltdown in 2009. And so he sells it at a serious loss and moves to Malibu. There's also a story about him bailing out his dad. And then this, Mark Twain act, Citizen Twain, it's called.
Kind of self-financed, right?
Self-financed, right? And it's not like that's definitely raking it in. And there's a lot of movies in the IMDb that are straight to video. So he's just not, he was playing Elvis, Jim Morrison, Batman, Doc Holliday, Moses. And then all of a sudden he's like, direct to video. Then I also think, and this was something somebody pointed out that I hadn't considered, who knows what his health insurance plan was, but his cancer was probably very expensive. And, you can imagine more financial difficulty. So that all steered me to a lower number. Plus the fact that he's sort of saying, I didn't manage my business affairs well. I just never figured that out. I'm not Tom Cruise. I'm not, I'm not like a lot of my contemporaries. And I guess I'm an idiot when it comes to that. So that was all the stuff that went into my thinking. I'm also really, really bad at this category. We did an episode on Dr. Ruth where I was off by over $100 million. I don't know. Anything else you want to add to the mix before we give our guess?
I know he had to like tour and sign autographs, at the end of his life.
Let's go ahead and reveal. So,
I put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. All right. So Isaac Kestenbaum wrote down $5 million.
Michael Osborne wrote down $12 million.
All right. And the actual net worth for Val Kilmer is $10 million. Estimated between $10 million and $25. All right. So,
all right. I actually had 10 million in my script, and then as you were talking, I'm like, it's too high. It's too high.
It felt too high. Look, 10 million, this is I think my favorite number. The best table at the net worth, Famous Engraving net worth table is 20 million, but 10 is, I think that's the right number, man. For a life like this, with this kind of artistic pull and creative integrity, if he died with 10 million in Malibu and everybody is like trying to, say like, my God, what a great actor, I think we're in good company. So at $10 million, let's place him on the Famous Engraving net worth leaderboard. This is the second best dinner table in the afterlife. So also with 10 million, we have Aretha Franklin, Roger Ebert, John Prine, Margaret Thatcher, Florence Henderson, Steve Irwin, Maya Angelou, Louis Anderson, Leonard Cohen, Luke Perry, and Bill Russell. That's a great table in the afterlife.
Quite the mix.
Val Kilmer is right there. Oh, I love this. And this places him right at position 74 on the Famous Engraving net worth leaderboard. Well done, Val. That's a good run. And it was never about the money. It was never about the money. Okay, let's move on. Category 5, Malkovich, or Tiny Trophy. So this is the most confusing category we have on Famous Engraving. We either offer a Tiny Trophy, which is a sort of small award for some hidden accolade, or what we call a Malkovich moment. This is based on the movie Being John Malkovich, in which people can take a little portal into somebody's mind and have a front row seat to one of their experiences. So what do you got here?
What I had for this was the poster for Heat.
Yeah.
If you look at that, apparently he's on there, like right in between like the big heads of Al Pacino and Bob De Niro. And the reason for that, he claims, is because they couldn't match his rate. Like Heat's budget was lower than what he could command at the time. And so instead he requested, could you please put me on the poster in between these two great stars? And
it's
that's
such
what
a good
they
poster.
did. Yeah. It's kind of like this little Easter egg. And he called it a Hollywood tone poem of a poster, which I really liked. Yeah.
Great one, dude. I love that.
Thanks.
What I went with is he shockingly was never, not only did he never get an Academy Award, he was never nominated. I think that is kind of incredible, because I do think he's an actor who transforms, who was very much in the thick of it. I guess I have a bit of a bias with Val Kilmer in that his career happened to be like he was, I guess, I don't know, 20 years older than me, a little less than that. So his rise to fame, tracks with my childhood into adulthood. And so he does happen to be in some of my favorite movies of all time, Heat and True Romance, most notable. But even, The Doors, and I love everything else we talked about. So I think I might just have a bias for how and when I encountered him. But he never got an award. He was nominated for a Grammy in 2012 for the Citizen Twain Project, and he lost to Betty White. And every time he mentions this in an interview, he pretends like he has this major beef with Betty White, like she knows what she did.
Well, Betty is evil. All right, moving on. I wasn't gonna say that in public, but she knows what she did.
Do you want to tell us what Betty
stole my Grammy.
She stole your Grammy?
She stole my Grammy.
She didn't break into your house.
Let's leave it at that.
This is the thing, is that his story, and it's not even his story. His story of himself is not settled exactly. There are times where he is expressing a lot of surrender and gratitude and serenity and peace. But then there's other times where he's like, yeah, I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth a lot. I kind of mismanaged my career. I kind of wish I had more money now. I kind of the interview with Larry King is before Top Gun comes around, and Larry King's like, would you like to be back in Hollywood? He's like, God, yes. He seems like desperate for roles, you know? So I think both things are a little bit true, but overall, I don't think he cares that much about awards, and I love that he's picking a fight with Betty White. So
I love
that was
too.
my tiny trophy.
That's
award.
amazing. That's so good.
Okay.
Betty White.
No, of all people. Okay, let's take one more break. All right, category 6, words to live by. In this category, we choose a quote. These are either words that came out of this person's mouth or was said about them. What did you have here? I'm dying to know.
I've got Roger Ebert.
I was really thinking about him with the loss of body too. You know, that he
totally.
loses his jaw
Right,
and, you know, has this sort of facial disfigurement. And there was a similar path with Val Kilmer losing his voice, like the thing he is sort of known for in a way.
Yeah. And they're at the table together. In the afterlife at the $10 million table, right?
At the $10 million table. There you go. Okay, so Roger Ebert quote.
So Roger Ebert about Val Kilmer said, "If there is an award for the most unsung leading man of his generation, Val Kilmer should get it. In movies as different as Real Genius, Top Gun, Top Secret, he has shown a range of characters so convincing that it's likely most people, even now, don't realize they were looking at the same actor."
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's the thing. We know he's a good actor. I don't know that he often gets put in that category of like Daniel Day-Lewis, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Denzel Washington, Meryl Streep, the kind of, truly transformative actors. And part of it is he's so beautiful, right? He's such an attractive man that you kind of forget. It's easy to forget or lose sight of how talented he is, you know?
What'd you have?
This was a phrase, and I'm not sure if he said it or somebody said it about him, but I haven't been able to let it go. And it gets back to the spiritual pursuit and his faith in prayer. Somewhere in the research, I came across these words: all prayers work. It's just that sometimes we don't like the answer. I wouldn't say I pray exactly. I don't get on my knees and say, words that I've memorized. But I do have daily rituals, and I practice something in the realm of prayer and meditation every day. And I try and do that every day. And I've been thinking a lot about the power of prayer. And I don't think... And again, I want to just be clear. I don't mean this in a religious context. This sort of gets back to my take what you want and leave the rest behind idea, that I do think that a prayer in the most general sense is a effort to have a conversation with something greater than you. That may be a one-way conversation, but where you are opening yourself up to signals. And maybe in Val Kilmer's case, it's coincidences. But I don't think it's a negotiation, right? I think if prayer works, it's not because you say, "Dear God, can I please have $10 million, right? It's more like you say, "Dear God, change me so that I'm okay with whatever money I have." That it's a change from the inside out. And that's what I get from this phrase. All prayers work. It's just that sometimes we don't like the answer. That, it is about moving towards acceptance. And that is something I absolutely see in his story. How perfect it was, we don't know. But based on what we do know, there was a lot more intentionality to move towards acceptance in all his affairs, in his financial affairs, with his romantic relationships, with the loss of his body. You really do see a man who moves towards it. And I think some of that is rooted in prayer. So those were my words to live by.
That's amazing. And I think moving towards acceptance is it really encapsulates what I see as the arc of, his career and certainly, or his life.
And I didn't know that, man. When he died, I did not know that. And I wouldn't have thought I'd have seen that. It's captured pretty well in the documentary, but it's sort of in the interviews. It's pretty well represented in the documentary, but because it's, him at the center of it, you're not sure how much to take it. I think the external data on him, the interview with Chuck Klosterman, the New York Times profile, what other people had to say about him kind of gives more credence to the story he's telling about himself in that documentary than I initially thought. It was an interesting one to watch at the early stage of the research and then to return to again.
Yeah.
Okay, category 7, Man in the Mirror. This category asks a fairly simple question. Did this person like their reflection? Yes or no? This is not a question of beauty, but rather a question of self-confidence versus self-judgment. I didn't struggle here. I said, yes, he liked it. I think early on, he does seem like maybe the world's most narcissistic man. You see him
really likes
for the
it, yeah.
camera, right? But yeah, I went a confident yes. Did you have other thoughts on this category?
Confident, yes, also. Yeah, and I think, it's, I think it's throughout his life. Like when you're young and super sexy, of course you're going to like your reflection, but I feel like he always did.
All right, let's move on. Category 8, coffee, cocktail, or cannabis. This is where we ask, which one would we most want to do with our dead celebrity? I can kick us off if you want.
Please do, yeah.
I want to have a drink with Val Kilmer on the ranch on the Pecos River, 45 minutes from Santa Fe. Probably, I'm thinking like a high-end tequila. And what I want to talk about is great movies. I think he is a student of great movies. There are these two stories of him trying to get on. He worked with really great directors. One was Stanley Kubrick, where he did this. He wanted to be in Full Metal Jacket, and even was like kind of shitty to Matthew Modine about this. And he sent this audition tape and ended up flying to London with it. And Kubrick's people were like, that's nice. It's not really how we work. And then apparently a similar thing with Scorsese and Goodfellas. He wanted the Ray Liotta character and did his damnedest. There's also an interesting yin and yang thing with Tom Cruise. I was thinking about this, like the whole Iceman Maverick conflict sort of, Tom Cruise winds up being in Born on the 4th of July with Oliver Stone. Val Kilmer's in The Doors, right? That, Tom Cruise has Mission Impossible. Val Kilmer's got The Saint. They both work with Michael Mann at some point. And there's a kind of weaving of their stories. Yeah. And then Val Kilmer fades away. I would love to just talk to him about acting. I think that his friendship with Marlon Brando is really interesting. I think that he does. I don't know where it would go, but I am curious, not to necessarily learn about his process, but what other roles he would point to as truly great roles and like what he sees. I'd like to hear him talk about the qualities that make for great acting. He has a kind of contentious relationship with Juilliard.
Juilliard was good for you?
Yeah, it was, I think they've changed and have a more, maybe more loving attitude than they had when I went there. So what was it, just tough love? What it was Michel Saint-Denis, who was a great man, and this sort of style that ballet still stands by, which is basically a kind of beating the talent into the actor or beating it out of him. I don't know.
So it's interesting the way his places where he gets challenged, do serve him well in some ways and then don't in others, or maybe do in ways that are not material, but that are more, on a deeper level. But I think, he's in his element. He talks about having great conversations outside at his ranch in New Mexico, a nice stiff drink where we just loosen up a little bit and talk great movies. Because he's in great movies. He's a student of great movies. Yeah. And I think I could do that all day with Val Kilmer. So that's the scene I want.
Nice. I love that.
What do you got?
So I took the same setting as you, but I went with a different substance. So I'm choosing coffee.
Okay.
Oliver Stone said that Val Kilmer was like eccentric. He said, even by the standards of Hollywood, Val was like pretty out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I want Val consuming anything that's going to increase the eccentric nature of him around me.
He's
I think
sufficiently
he might get
weird.
Yes, he might get insufferable. So I kind of want to sober him up. So I'm imagining that I spent the night at his ranch, and we wake up super early, like right before sunrise. And we have like a really strong cup of like cowboy coffee, like thick coffee.
Hell
and
yeah.
We ride horses up to the river, and we sit there and we're caffeinated and we're just talking about I want to go the opposite direction. I want to talk about his other creative endeavors. So I want to talk to him about like the spaces he wants to create and like these other ideas that he has for like creating community and art, and really just kind of get into sort of the big thinking that I was talking about and the thing I loved about him.
Man, I got to say, I was thinking a lot about this in the lead up to this conversation about what it means to create your own luck on some level. I mean, I said this at the top of the conversation that I think, Val Kilmer's talent aligns with the sort of market demands early on in his career. And when they fall out, he's sort of like, okay, he's trying to dissect that and understand it. Was I a difficult personality? I guess I was. Are the scripts not as good? Has Hollywood, just not making great movies anymore with these great screenplays? And I think there's truth in a lot of that. As somebody who cares a lot about this podcast, and has put a lot of work into it and wants, great things for it. That's not even necessarily I want everybody in America to hear this show or anything like that. I want it to be sustainable, and there is a creative endeavor here, and there is a luck element, and I think that part of and a timing component. And this show, Famous and Gravy, may really catch on, or it may have just been poorly timed, and it's a great thing. Allison reminded me the other day, I want to share this. We're recording this shortly after I've relaunched the show, right? Yeah. And Allison said, Michael, it may perform well, it may not, but no matter what, you're doing a very cool thing. Yeah. Like, this is a really cool show, and you need to feel proud about that no matter what. It was wonderful to hear her say that. It's like, oh, of course, I always forget this lesson. It's the journey, not the destination. Yes. It's the journey, not the destination. When am I going to get that through my thick skull?
That's all you talk about on the show.
Totally. And somehow I cannot apply those lessons to myself. What is it about the human condition that we do this? Like, we're so good at dissecting other people's lives, and we cannot seem to turn it back around, which is the whole thing of this show.
Yeah.
I think that what Val Kilmer was trying to create on his ranch and in his space in Southern California was setting the table. And that's all that is, right? Is like, can you create the conditions for creativity? Can you bring people to physical, ecological spaces, cultural spaces? Can you bring, different energies together? Can you bring novel collaborations together? And I think he cared a lot about that. And I could totally see you and him with a thick cup of coffee on the shores of the Pecos River.
Totally.
Like talking. And honestly, that obviously applies to you and to what you're doing at SALT. I mean, you are absolutely creating. Totally, man. That makes sense. I mean, you are, it's your program is journalistic and an orientation, but it still requires an unbelievable amount of creativity. It's all about storytelling.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that you want to foster those conditions. What can you learn from his efforts to do that? That would be a hell of a conversation.
Totally. Yeah. Just talking about that. Yeah.
I think we've arrived the final category, which we are now calling the pitch at the pearly gates. Although I will say people want me to bring back the Vanderbeek. They missed that net title. I don't know. Right now it's the pitch at the pearly gates. And this is, I just need to make this very clear. This is not a religious framing. This is, the pearly gates are a kind of surrogate for the afterlife. We want to send somebody's soul into the universe and really make the case for the upward staircase. I don't think this is a hard case to make. I mean, I think that there is inner conflict in his life, and I think that he probably hurt people with his ego in places. I think he came to see that. To a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there is a certain kind of lack of self-awareness that 100%, is also like a through line of his story. Yeah. I'm willing to forgive that. Right?
I think it's a testament to the rest of him, how I find his lack of self-awareness endearing rather than insufferable.
Totally. It really is like that friend. You're like, oh God.
I feel oddly protective of this, like, of this guy who.
I mean, I guess the world needs artists, right? And I think that, like, I totally agree. I totally, and some of it is the output. Some of it is I just love these movies and these roles and the risks and the failures, as well as the, however imperfect attempts at self-reflection towards the end and the what's it all about. And that's the case here. That's the obvious case here, is that he absolutely, followed some kind of path of early on ego and opportunity and, material windfall and living the life. And then when that was taken away from him in bits and pieces, first with the marriage and then with career opportunities and then with, later with the body, all along, he seems to, actually reorient towards a good thing that I am willing to forgive the lack of self-awareness because this is exactly the path that I want to follow. This is the upward staircase laid out for us,
I would just add that, I was shocked to find myself so moved by Val Kilmer's story in the research for this episode. And talking it through with you, I feel moved again, and it's amazing.
How are we feeling today, Doc?
I'm dying. How are you?
Pretty much the same.
So now we add self-pity, all lives frailties.
All right, Doc. All right, how many cards you want?
I don't want to play anymore.
How many?
Damn, you're the most fallible, stubborn, self-deluded, bullheaded man I've ever known in my entire life.
I call. You win.
Yet with all, you're the only human being in my entire life who ever gave me hope. What did you want?
Just to live a normal life.
There's no normal life, White. It's just life. Get on with it.
Don't know how.
Sure you do. Say goodbye to me. Go grab that spirited actress and make her your own. Take that beauty and run. Don't look back. Live every second. Live right up the hill. Live wide. Live for me.
Okay, speed round. Plugs for past shows. Isaac, if people liked this episode of Famous and Gravy, what's something from the back catalog you think they might enjoy?
I'm going to go with the episode on Bill Paxton.
Yes! Oh, his counterpart in Tombstone.
His co-star in Tombstone.
Yeah.
His co-star in Tombstone.
Yeah.
And also, he died too young and sort of not necessarily a leading man, but around. And I think certainly there's lots of differences too, but I think there's enough overlap that they'd be really great double feature.
I'm so glad you brought this one up. I gave Bill Paxton the IMDb MVP award because his IMDb is so exceptional. I was thinking about that as I was thumbing through Val Kilmer's IMDb. I think Bill Paxton still gets it. If I'm on a desert island, I want all of his movies rather than all of Val's. But Val is, I think, gets the silver medal there. I'm going to go Betty White. It's been a while since I've plugged this episode, and Betty White I just loved that episode. She's such a beloved figure, and that was episode 50 for us. That was sort of an important midpoint mark of everything. So I also love this beef that Val Kilmer has with it. So, episode 50, Golden Rose, Betty White, and episode 51, Goofball Stud, Bill Paxton. All right, here is a little preview for the next episode of Famous and Gravy.
So I wondered what we would have said about Jesus at the time he died.
Famous and Gravy listeners, we love hearing from you. If you want to reach out with a comment, a question, or to participate in our opening quiz, email us at hello@famousandgravy.com. In our show notes, we include all kinds of links, including to our website, our social channels, and our Substack. You can subscribe to our Substack at famousandgravy.substack.com. It is free. You could just click no thanks if they ask you to pay money. Famous and Gravy was created by Amit Kapoor and me, Michael Osborne. Thank you so much to Isaac Kestenbaum from the Salt Institute for joining us for this episode. It was produced by Jacob Weiss with original music by Kevin Strang. See you next time.